I have never, in the history of my RuneScape Abuse series, interviewed anybody who has run an operation on this scale. For this video, I interviewed Pim De Witte, founder of RuneScape's once largest private server, SoulSplit. The private server averaged 2,000 concurrent players across its 3 games, achieved $1.5 million in annual net revenue, and had 3 million unique accounts registered. First, let me give you a bit of a history. So, SoulSplit went live to the public in January of 2009. It was actually Pim's 3rd attempt at a RuneScape private server. His first being World Extortion. I'm not even going to pretend that I can pronounce that name, but here's a short clip of it. And a second being Zed RPS. At the time, people could go to soulsplit.com and play the game, but now that domain just redirects to his latest company, MetalTV. The server finally came to an end on June 30th of 2015, and this was due to a steadily declining player base after the release of Oldschool Runescape in 2013. He stated in a post on his forum that he had to let more than 30 people go from the SoulSplit company because of this decline. One other thing, for the first 24 hours that this video is up, Pim will be in the comments section below answering your questions on the first pinned comment right at the top. That's how you know it's him. Keep in mind, this guy has to sleep. He runs a business and it's Christmas time, so he might not be there for the full 24 hours, but feel free to ask away. Another consideration is that there'll probably be some Pim imposters on that comment chain, so be very wary if there's any links or somebody's asking for anything. Cross-reference the channel URL from his pinned comment to the comment that was actually made. Make sure it's the real guy. Okay, I know what you're interested in now. How the hell do I know that I'm actually talking to Pim De Witte? Everybody wants the proof. Well, he commented on one of my other RuneScape Abuse videos offering to do an interview with me. And of course, I saw that comment. I knew who he was because I researched this stuff for my videos, and I thought to myself, this is completely fake. It's not the real guy. But I was talking to some other people, and they said, no, that indeed is the real Pim De Witte. So I took to Twitter, found his real Twitter profile, and then sent him a DM. From there, he got in contact with me on Discord, sent me the picture of that DM, and it's been a great friendship ever since. So, the interview. I wanted to ask him questions about SoulSplit, how it was created, what it was like managing the people that helped him run it, how it actually grew, but unfortunately, he told me that he couldn't give me too many details with regards to the time when he was actually running SoulSplit, but nevertheless, I managed to get a lot of information out of him about his own personal experience running a private server and what he's doing now after SoulSplit. I think it's a very interesting interview, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. Okay, without further ado, the first question that I asked him is, what sparked the creation of SoulSplit? And he told me this. He said, honestly, I think it mostly stemmed from the desire to build something people actually played. Quote, I was kind of addicted to building things and then having people use them. And he told me that that feeling never really went away, and you'll see that as we get to later questions. My next question was, how did you get into tech? And I asked this because he was like 10, 11 years old setting up these RuneScape private servers. To do that, you need to know how to program, you need to have a little bit of networking experience, and a little bit of server administration experience. So I want to know, how the heck were you doing that at such a young age? And he gave me a bit of a short answer. He said, quote, I got into tech by coding my first private server. That's how I learned how to program. And that didn't really answer my question, because how do you learn to code by coding, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. I then went on to ask him if he had any post-secondary, because he's been in all of these project manager roles and all of these tech lead roles. How did he get the knowledge to perform those jobs? And he told me that no, he has no post-secondary, but he did learn from YouTube and coworkers. And going back to the original question, he probably learned to program from YouTube videos, and he didn't say this, but there's also forum boards set up dedicated to helping people set up RuneScape private servers. He was probably on those too. Okay, he went on to tell me that he often has people contacting him, asking him for advice on them starting a private server. So I wanted to hear what his advice was to them. He typed me up a long message, but I'll cut it down for you. He basically told me this: if you look at people who are successful in private servers, let's say they make $120,000 a year, then they also have the potential to make $120,000 a year outside of private servers, which is much more sustainable. He went on to say that building games are a great way to learn though, and it taught him a ton about coding, but he wouldn't recommend running private servers as a career, and here's why. Because if you have the technical ability to make a private server, then you also have the technical ability to make something much bigger of your own. Quote, it might be harder, but it's more sustainable. He said that he's quite sad about how many people have been stuck in private servers, wasting their youth, when they could have been building something much bigger. He said that each and every RuneScape private server developer that was somewhat successful inside of that area has been successful outside of private servers as well. He then went on to say that there's this common misconception that $120,000 a year is a lot of money. He said it's a lot when it's sustainable, but if you're not building a resume and not working on anything long term, you are actually only putting yourself behind on your life in exchange for that $120,000. He said when people are 20 to 30 years old that have that kind of time on their hands, they could be building the next Google or the next Facebook. I think that message is really important to anyone who is thinking about starting a private server or is currently running one. If you are, maybe go back, listen to it again, and really take that message to heart. My next question for Pim was, what can you tell me about moving on from private servers into other ventures? And let me give you a little background here first. So after SoulSplit, he went on to do some cool projects with Doctors Without Borders, having roles such as the tech lead and product manager. He did that for 2 years and 7 months, and then he started his own company known as MetalTV, which is a game clipping and sharing platform that has over 2.5 million gamers on it. He's raised a ton of investment money from investors, and he's hired employees. The whole 9 yards. He's been very successful at that. The point being, I wanted to know what that transition was like from doing private servers into legitimate ventures. He told me this. He said it was rough at first because he was so used to being a big deal in private servers. He said that when he finally ventured out into the real world, it made him realize how much the world had actually passed him by. Quote, I had learned so many bad practices in private servers that I had to unlearn, and that kind of put me behind in learning real engineering. He also told me, quote, I also had to learn to collaborate with people to get things done. He said for him, the biggest thing was that he joined Doctors Without Borders, and that eventually led to a project at Google. Quote, I really learned how many things I did not know, but I also learned how much RuneScape private server knowledge is transferable to the real world. He said that eventually, after building several projects with existing teams and organizations, he went on to start MetalTV and was lucky to partner with some great investors that led him into building the company and team that he has now. The next thing I wanted to know is if he has postsecondary and what he thinks about people pursuing postsecondary. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the video, but let me give you his in-depth answer now. In regards to having postsecondary, he told me this, quote, not many people know this, but I never went to college. In fact, I barely finished high school. He said he decided to finish high school when he actually first came to the United States. He then went on to tell me that he contemplated going back to college for a while after SoulSplit shut down, but when the Ebola outbreak happened and he was asked to do that project with Doctors Without Borders, the choice was kind of made for him. He then told me that looking back on it, a part of him still kind of wishes that he went to college because he thinks he would have been able to develop himself further. He He would have spent more time learning and less time doing in his 20s, but he's still grateful for all the opportunities that he's had, and he's happy where he's at. In regards to people that want to pursue post-secondary, and his advice to them, he told me this, quote, "As somebody who didn't complete college, he cannot judge in favor for it or against it. He told me that what he does see, and the people that he hires, is that those who went to college and what they learned has very little relevance on their actual skill set. He said that most of it has to do with passion and having done it for a long time. He told me that one of their best engineers went to college for finance and that he has only been coding for 3 years. He said, what I hear a lot of from people is that college teaches you to learn, but he believes that there is nothing stopping you from going out onto YouTube and learning what you need to learn yourself for free." The next thing I wanted to hear is what MetalTV actually is in his own words. You know, it's a startup, I know that, and it's growing fast, and he's hiring tons of employees for it. But what is it? And so he told me that Metal started with the notion that capturing your digital life should be as simple as posting to Instagram or Snapchat. He said that they couldn't believe that it wasn't the case yet and all that good stuff. But the interesting bit here is he said that a lot of the people that used to work at SoulSplit now work at Metal, and they're hiring. And actually, I just got word this week, so I did the full interview with him on November 4th, and I'm just getting around to making the video now, and we've been talking back and forth. And he told me that this week, they actually have every person from the original SoulSplit crew now working at Metal, and on top of that, the original creator of Project Insanity, also known as PI, one of the first RuneScape Private Server bases, is set to join MetalTV in January. The takeaway is that Pim has been very successful not only in SoulSplit but his ventures afterwards, and so I wanted to get the advice that he would have given himself before starting SoulSplit. He told me this. He said, try and spend some time outside of private servers. Try and get your way into some sort of engineering team and really pay attention to the best practices that they're using. He also said, study how to solve a problem really well. He said any business is built on a very clear problem and a very simple, elegant solution. Quote, it's nothing like private servers, but when you get it right, it is so much more exciting. He then went on to tell me that anybody can actually tweet him at Pim De Witte on Twitter and he'll happily help with anything you need. Secondly, he said read every single one of Andrew Chen's blog post and Paul Graham's blog post. Finally, he said this, quote, I should probably add, focus on one thing at a time. You can only do one thing really well. Do that one thing really well, validate or invalidate your assumption, and if you see potential, invest. Otherwise, move on. Do not try to do 3 simultaneous projects. Each one will end up not so great. The only person on earth who can pull this off is Elon Musk because he has billions in funding and really good executives. He said, the idea when you make a product is to make it a razor blade, not a Swiss Army knife.
Did you use this?
Yes, somehow.
No. It shows that it tells an interesting story. You see, if you make a knife that has everything in it, it really has nothing. If something can do everything, it generally can't do much of anything.
Right.
And so because this knife has so many different tools, it's really useless.
One of the last questions that I asked Pim was, what are your most valuable skills? And he told me that it's his ability to learn mostly anything he wants to, and the stubbornness to stay positive even when things don't look so great. He told me that he thinks most people in the private server scene share those traits. I asked him a lot more questions, and I'll include every single one in the description below, but this video is getting quite long, and I think I covered the most important. Finally, I asked him if there was anything he wanted to add. And he said this. He said, it would mean the world to me if you guys could try MetalTV with RuneScape or any other game and give him feedback on what the platform is like to actually use as a user. He said that they're growing really fast at the moment, but understand that they don't have everything right yet and that they would really love your feedback on exactly what things you would like added the most. He said that, I think together we can build something very special. So in the description of this video, there is a link to MetalTV. It does have a referral from Crumb on it. I don't get any kickback from that, and I wasn't paid to do this video, but that's the link he told me to include as a favor for coming on. They're doing the old school RuneScape approach kind of, where they're actually listening to the community and adding features. So maybe you'll find a platform there that you will really enjoy using. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. This was a really good look into the mind of somebody who ran one of RuneScape's most successful private servers, you know, truly an entrepreneur, and the people that are currently running some of the top private servers probably have a similar mindset. I hope you found this video interesting, guys. The next one is set to come out soon, so if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing, and until next time, love, peace, and chicken grease.